There's a bit of information online on those. There's a whole lot of that data from the first runs are there. The particular background here was kind of relevant to something I didn't show you. The Honolulu page is the one in the middle, and there's very little information yet. I've only been working on WMPVN 6 months, and the priority hasn't been on putting information up. We just wrap up with something about exploration strategies. Everything is still all over the place, even people dragging boats off reefs. Kaufman has done a bit on fitness landscapes at home in the universe. And one of the other terms we finish up with is self-organised criticality. The strategy for moving around becomes kind of obvious. I believe that getting from nothing to physics is the hard problem. That's why I'm working on cellular automata, not because it gets you from nothing to physics, but because it addresses some of the low-level questions. And cycles are pretty important. In our own eukaryotic world, the homeobox gene that enables bodies to develop with some kind of structure, with the notion of where the front and where the back is, and where the head and where the toe is pretty important. And that only happened 600 million years ago, although there's been life on Earth for 4 billion years. So structural multi-celled animals are a late innovation. It might be, and my betting is, that we're not going to find too many other examples of multicellular life as we wander around the galaxy. I think we'll find a lot of bacteria. You know, the betting for me is that we won't find anybody who's any close to technological in this galaxy, because if we were going to find them, they'd already be here. I see humanity as being very transitional. People who are all humanists and think humanity is an end in itself are wrong. We've got to be, yeah, okay, well, it's going to be -2 in that case. I think what will happen is that our robots will do things that are interesting. I don't think they'll become our enemies. I think we'll synergise with them and produce a new world. And I think their development will be more off-planet, and they will put some sources of value off the planet. Just make a note about self-fulfilling prophecies. We have this notion of a soul. I think we will build souls. I think we will send our souls around the galaxy, but I don't think our souls exist yet. I just think it needs some fairly smart coding. It might take a few hundred years to evolve, but we'll ultimately be able to transmit updates. The interesting questions then become, what's it going to be like to be a reincarnated person? The person who goes to sleep isn't the person who wakes up, but how does it feel? And this doesn't wrap up neatly. I need to go through the 1 extra minute on Choroid Institute, which is where we're trying to research these things. Well, this has been established, and I'll have there'll be some brochures out on the table, or some one-page flyers at least. Choroid Institute came out of Melbourne Emergence Meetup and a few other things we've been doing. We're trying to set up an independent research organisation into emergent systems and complexity. We are setting up. The reason is because it's a good name out of Melbourne's Western growth area, where Melbourne's about to gain a city the size of Adelaide. And we are already working. We're doing some work, being paid to do some work already, and we're keen to get members and sponsors signed up as quickly. Right, questions?
Simon's research going from cellular automata to physics? It's been around for a couple of decades. But how far has it got?
I think there's about 20 orders of magnitude gap between the most complex thing you can do with cellular automata in current computing and where physics starts, where detect observable physics starts. So, it, short of in 50 years' time turning all the spare time on every computer on the planet into running some, and they've got to be the right ones. It's a long, long way away. All we are doing is finding principles that are more generic than physics. We're not finding physics. We're not going to find physics anytime soon, unless physics turns out to be inescapable, unless it turns out to be something that really had to happen because it's such a simple underlying rule. But there's no reason to expect that at this point.
What's the best wow so far?
I think seeing that, a bit like the whole thermodynamics thing of entropy and so on, that order and chaos actually work together. To me, that's been the thing that's changed my view of where we are, that order and chaos aren't opposed. They actually, what you need is the space where they work together.
I've forgotten what I was going to say. Can you explain the cellular thing? I've forgotten the word now.
Cellular automata.
Automata. Just a basic, simple.
The basic thing is that the cellular automata world is, and that we work with, is a two-dimensional grid. There's a cell at every location. The cell, at every tick of the clock, the cell looks at its neighbours and decides what its next state will be depending on the state of its neighbours.
Cell division then.
So?
Is it cell division then?
No, there's none of that's built in. The calculation of the next state of a cell is based.
So it's a cell's progression over time. What happens
and
to
the state of the cell and the patterns that emerge don't stay in the cells where they are. They move around. Some of them stay and become boring, but the ones that are interesting move.
When you say that humans will fit on this something the size of a USB stick, is that in gigabytes or in centimeters?
Gigabytes.
Gigabytes?
Yeah. I mean, the simple arithmetic behind this is work out how many words you will say, or your internal verbal commentator will say in your lifetime. Then work out how much redundancy there is in those words. And there's not a lot of data left. That's just, now, and what most of your words are stuff that are culturally common. So if you actually factor out the cultural universals, our individual consciousness, the verbal end in particular, is almost negligible as far as current data storage is capable. I mean, these computers run 1 billion times faster than we run. They really do. So they compress our lifespan into that. People don't like that, but that's how it is. Yeah. Sorry. You pick people. Brandon.
This is sort of half a question and half a just an interpretive comment about what emergent phenomenon is in the first place. It seems to me that if we consider everything to be the emergent phenomenon of its constituent parts, from the things we're looking at on the screen there to chairs and people and rocks and all that. To me, the question is what qualifies as interest in the phenomenon? What is its quality of interestingness that makes these things?
The kind of word we started out with, surprise. Everything becomes familiar once you know it's there. You know, elephants after you found the first one aren't all that interesting. Black swans aren't interesting after you found the first one. But when the finding of the first one, the one you weren't counting on. Taleb's other example is the turkey that discovers after 1,000 days of being fed, gets its head chopped off. It's totally surprised. Momentarily, that's all it knows. That may answer some other questions.
One more question.
Yep.
Colin Hales.
This is a toolkit question. In your explorations in your toolkit, is
there any construct in the software which allows you to consider what it might be like to be one of the entities within the cellular automata?
It's
perspective on everything else that isn't it. Because that's where we are. If this is a cellular automata.
yeah, you could, yeah. This is God's eye view stuff, definitely. You could build that. I mean, it's all totally extensible. It's programmable in Python and Perl. You can build your own hooks to do. I do stuff like that to export views. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that your initial conditions in the simulation shows first more symmetrical. So, and clearly, I guess that what emerges is that depends on your initial conditions,
Yeah.
So what depends is there?
This was the great discussion I had from early on with Bill Hall. I started off with that seed because it was very like a very common pattern that occurred inside the pattern naturally. I've been through 500 seeds, of which probably 30 had some degree of symmetry. The other 470 were irregular.
Is there a distinction between what emerges?
There are on the diagonally symmetric and on the certain class of bilaterally symmetric, there are some things that emerge that don't happen anywhere near as commonly in in non-symmetric patterns, but they are only some of the things. They're not total. They're not the little things we looked at. That thing we looked at, the tracks and that, they're universal. They're not. They were no result of the symmetry. The fact that there were 4 copies of it was a result of the symmetry.
So do you think in the future, you're saying a soul could be copied, actual like electrical brain patterns, do you reckon that could be recorded, and what do you think the technology would be if you could actually record something that complex?
What you have to do to record it the way I'm talking about is do some really smart data processing and pull out the bits that matter, because ultimately we have a whole lot of common infrastructure. We build on a whole common foundation. There is a vast amount that is the same, and what we need if we're going to beam our souls around the galaxy Keith Henson style, we actually need to be able to pull them down to a sensible amount of data, because even running signals from here to Alpha Centauri is going to take a bit of work.
Okay, that's all the questions. We've got a break, so put your hands together for training. Before the break, I'd just like to mention that we have a Twitter hashtag here. It's H+AU. Is that correct? Yep. Yes. So, if you want to do some tweeting, tweet to that. Thanks, guys. Back in 15 minutes.
Did a good job. Would Colin be able to use your laptop?
No, certainly. Yeah, but I probably want to put power to it. That's all.
Yeah.
Seeing you've got yours working, I'm going to try your DA adapter.
Well,
Mine's a bit later.
That's the biggest problem. You've got to have the right one of those.
Well, why don't we just use yours? Because, yeah. Well,
Whichever, we can do it either way. We'll do,
I've already got my stuff on Tim's machine now.
so what? It's just a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
There's a document, there's a PowerPoint, and there's a
I tried to give it to him.
But anyway, excellent talk, Tony. In particular, I'd like to see all your slides and your PowerPoints on the website for here. Is your voiceover? I love the fact that that's cracked, and this is insignificant. That really made it for me.
Well, hopefully this is recorded. Hang on, I should actually get out of that.
I think we